Hello and welcome back to the School Transportation Nation podcast. I'm Tony Corpin, your publisher at School Transportation News, and this episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, and our friends at Liquid Spring and App Garden. I'll be talking with Derek Campbell, Director of Transportation at Del Norte County Unified School District in California, about how technology has been helping his district.
Hello, everyone. I am Taylor Hannon, the STN Associate Editor, filling in for Mr. Ryan Gray. A little later, I'll be talking with Monica Raygoza. She's the Director of Transportation Services at Corona-Norco Unified School District, also out of California. So very California-heavy podcast today, Tony.
You know, Taylor, I'm really wondering where Ryan is. You know, here at STN HQ, usually we're kind of wrapping up the monthly issue. So June's issue went to press this last week, and we're really excited to share some of the articles. We've got a big movers and shakers, big fleets, contractors, lots happening. So everybody kind of needs a break. So, you know, no rest for us, but Ryan decides to go take off and go hang out today. It's hurting my feelings a little bit. But, you know, Taylor, how does that make you feel?
Well, I think you just hurt my feelings. Am I not as good as Ryan?
Oh, no, we love you, Taylor. Actually, there's many requests for you over Ryan. So, maybe he should be worried a little bit.
Do we need to bring the poll back? I'm ready for it.
Maybe. We'll have to figure it out. Yeah, we'll have some fun with it. Yeah, but you know what, Taylor? There's been some really interesting headlines coming out this last week. I know our friends at LA Unified had some statements about school. You want to break it down for the audience?
Yeah, let's get into it. So it looks like LAUSD is going to start up in the fall, giving all students the opportunity to participate in on-campus, in-person instruction. So that's great. Full-day programs for both elementary and secondary students will look much like they did prior to the pandemic. So that's great news. It seems like everything's kind of ramping back up. I actually saw something interesting with LAUSD, Tony. They're partnering with Amazon. So essentially, graduating students who enroll in full-time community college will have the opportunity to secure, a job with Amazon. And then these students can kind of work their schedule around the job and vice versa. And then that way they can still support their families, go to school. I mean, it's pretty awesome. It's a great partnership.
Yeah, it's really interesting, too. I watched the video from the superintendent at LA Unified talk a little bit about that, and they had a representative from Amazon on there. And, it was kind of like you turn in your schedule, your school schedule, and then Amazon builds a work program around you because obviously Amazon's a 24/7 company. So really interesting program. It almost gives me reasons to think like, hey, how can the school bus industry kind of create maybe some job opportunities for students that might be looking, maybe we're looking for bus drivers. Anybody got a shortage out there? I bet a few districts are looking for talented young people that could help them out. And so, yeah, I mean, nothing like looking from within. So, made me think about, hey, what can schools do to engage maybe the administration about creating maybe some job programs for kids? Could be an interesting idea.
Yeah, we did survey some people this month kind of asking if school districts offer a program to students kind of interested in, vehicle maintenance as a trade. And about 33% of 39 respondents said yes. So some, but, a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And, I saw another headline. Mayor Bill de Blasio came out and basically gave the green light for New York City getting back to business, in-person class for the 21-22 school year. So it looks like the big metropolitan cities are kind of coming around. I know there'd been some commentary from teachers unions as well, voting to kind of get back to business. So there's a lot of stories out there. So I think we're all anticipating the, return to in-person learning nationwide, back to business, 21-22, kind of that mid-August, September timeframe. So I'm pretty pumped. I can't wait to see like normal again, whatever that looks like.
Speaking of getting back to normal, now I'm not going back to school, but back to travel is what I'm excited for. And I just saw that Southwest fares are approaching pre-pandemic levels, so traveling is returning there. I was just on a flight last week, and it was from Denver to LA, fully booked, pre-pandemic boarding style. I'm gonna miss the middle seat being empty, but face masks were required, but everything was back to normal. It was great to see.
Yeah, we're also starting to see a lot of state trade shows this summer start to pop back up. I know there may be still a lot of restrictions around travel, or can I go? Do I feel comfortable going? We've got the whole mask, maybe not mask. I know there's been a lot of large national retailers that have basically made the comments, hey, we're going to be no mask if you're vaccinated, but it's totally on the honor system, right? So that's kind of interesting to me. Obviously, with children, there's still basically a very large cross-section of kids that aren't going to be vaccinated. So I don't anticipate schools pulling off the masks for kids. But, there's just constant debate, like what is safe? I guess it really comes down to what's your comfort level for your kids? What does administration look like? How do the employees feel about it? The school bus is kind of an enclosed environment. So you're also dealing with some of those other challenges. Like, we have a webinar that just happened with United Safety that talked about air purification, cleaning, sanitizing. Those are important things that I think we're going to pull through to the new school year, right? That behavior, that thing that we experienced that like maybe we weren't cleaning as frequently. Now it's like really on the regular. I think that's going to be here to stay, right? And we're seeing that. So there's just a lot of interesting trends kind of continually develop, and what is going to hold into that new school year and beyond. So very interesting stuff, Taylor. Hey, as you prep for the new school year, you're probably thinking about, hey, should I buy new school buses? And you know what? We got a great school bus tip this week from our friends at Liquid Spring, the undisputed leader in smart suspension technology and performance. Unlike other suspension systems that make you choose between improved ride quality or more responsive handling, with Liquid Spring's patented Class platform, you get the best of both worlds, as Liquid Spring's smart technology is constantly monitoring and responding to road conditions as well as driver inputs to provide the best experience possible to drivers and riders alike. Check out Liquid Spring online at liquidspring.com or through social media at Liquid Spring to learn how and when you can test drive a new school bus and experience Liquid Spring for yourself. Accessibility, mobility, tranquility. That's the Liquid Spring promise. Learn more at liquidspring.com. That's liquidspring.com. Taylor, let's talk Wi-Fi, student connectivity. We had some big announcements from the FCC. Break it down.
Let's do it. So the Federal Communications Commission adopted final rules to implement the Emergency Connectivity Fund program. So this is funded through the American Rescue Plan, but essentially it establishes $7.17 billion to provide funding for schools and libraries for connected devices and broadband technology. Now, what it also did was allow the purchase of Wi-Fi hotspots for school buses and bookmobiles to also provide that off-campus broadband services to students. And we saw a lot of that during the pandemic, people equipping their school buses with those Wi-Fi hotspots. And now it looks like it's kind of like catching up there in that federal environment. There's been a lot of legislation introduced in Congress over the last several years that looks at adding school bus Wi-Fi to the E-rate program, funded through the FCC, but that is yet to catch wind. And I'm wondering if maybe including it now in the Emergency Connectivity Fund will kind of help push school bus Wi-Fi to be considered an option, going forward in that E-rate funding.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I think, student connectivity on school buses has been a big conversation during the pandemic, kind of like how do kids access what they need from a schoolwork standpoint and to get a lot of the learning hours. And what's so interesting about this FCC program is it has some other comments in there that it talks about other types of eligible equipment, including modems and routers. But the FCC stated it didn't have sufficient record to determine a reasonable amount of support, which kind of just leaves it a bit ambiguous, right? So instead, it's kind of directed the Universal Service Administration Company to review each request on kind of an individual application basis to request funding. So applicants need to apply and get out there, take a quote from your Wi-Fi suppliers and take it to the FCC, apply and see if it gets approved, right? And if the selections and costs are approved, you get 100% reimbursement stated by the FCC. So if I'm getting 100% reimbursement on Wi-Fi on my school buses, I'm applying, right? If you don't have Wi-Fi now, you definitely should go apply. I mean, there's a limited window of time to apply for these funds. I think they gave it about 45 days. There is a story up on stnonline.com written by our own Taylor Hannon. So if you check out stnonline.com, you can read more about this great new funding opportunity. We also sent out a news flash last week on it. So if you go back and check your email for an STN news flash, you might see it there. So yeah, really interesting stuff, Taylor.
Yeah, something else to be on the lookout for, Tony. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration released its 2021 Atlantic hurricane season outlook last week, and it's reporting an above normal number of named storms and hurricanes. So it's predicting 13 to 20 named storms with winds of at least 39 miles per hour.
Named storms sounds like big hurricanes. And that, I know we don't need any hurricanes. I mean, the Gulf Coast, Florida, Texas. I mean, I remember they got just battered by hurricanes. And I feel like we've been kicked in the teeth with COVID. A real bad hurricane season, man, it's kind of Debbie Downer, right? That doesn't sound like very fun stuff. So I guess we'll kind of see. Taylor, what is hurricane season again? You want to remind our audience?
I think it's June to November. We don't really have experience with too many hurricanes out here in California, but it's what the internet says. So I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, right. I've personally been in a hurricane in September. I was on vacation with my family in Cabo San Lucas, and we literally got trapped there. And I'll tell you, it was one heck of a scary experience. So you don't want to wish that on anybody. But I think, the moral of the story is we need to be ready. Right? As an industry, we need to prep. I think there's a lot of technologies that are in place that have come out of COVID that might really help. And school buses are always kind of that beacon of hope for communities and cities during these hurricanes. So, we'll keep a lookout for kind of those news stories, but I would definitely advise our audience to kind of start turning your mind to that as we get into that late summer, fall timeframe that those sorts of things could come. But,
especially as summer school is ramping up, Tony. I mean, that's another thing on transportation directors' minds. So hurricane season, summer school, it's all kind of right there. We did send a survey to transportation directors last week. And so it's indicating that summer school is actually being required in some states due to learning losses experienced from COVID-19. 67% of 39 respondents say that additional transportation service is required this summer to address a more robust summer school program offered by districts. So it seems like it's all ramping back up. We're getting ready for the new school year, for summer school, for everything.
Yeah, I know Ryan and I talked a little last week about, how is school busing going to play a role during summer, right? So maybe you guys are thinking about it a little more, but, the question mark is, what is ridership going to look like during the summer, right? There's a big question mark on that. And you're trying to have enough resources, drivers, buses to support it, but you're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit. So, I would definitely reach to your administration, see if you can't survey the parents. It's tough sometimes. You just get no response. So it's a real challenge to try to plan with a lot of unknown things. So yeah, looking forward, school transportation has got its work cut out for it going into this new school year and into summer school. But we got you at School Transportation News. We want to be sure you're the most updated you can be. So be sure and go to stnonline.com and check out all the latest stories and news along the way. That said, Going back to school can be stressful for both kids and student transporters. Your district's routing software provider should be more than a vendor. They should be a partner to help you get ready for opening day. The experts at TransFinder get that. They're not just the creators of an award-winning routing logistics software. They have an award-winning support team, and they've created a back-to-school package designed to give you peace of mind. This package is a comprehensive and customized plan to get you up and running with the safest and most efficient routes. It starts with having a single point of contact, creating a timeline with critical milestones, and allowing experts to clean up your data, import new data, and communicating that with your community. Going back to school has never been so easy. Call 800-373-3609 or email marketing@transfinder.com for more information. Don't forget to add STN podcast in that subject line or email to make sure you remind them where they came from. It was from School Transportation Nation podcast. All right, going to take a minute and enjoy a couple of really great interviews from transportation directors here in California. Don't want to miss this. We'll be right back. All right, guys, I am super excited to bring on our next friend here at the School Transportation Nation, Mr. Derek Campbell, Director of Transportation at Del Norte County Unified School District in California. Derek, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. We're excited to have Derek on the podcast. He's got a lot to share about technology and how it's really helped him. And can you give us a little bit of breakdown on Del Norte Unified, how many students you transport, how many buses you have? Give us kind of the lay of the land.
Sure. We have 18 routes and we serve 8 schools. So we're a unified school district, anything from elementary to high school. And out of the roughly 3,500 students, we transport about 1,000 of them. So we have pretty good ridership. We are a pretty rural county, so we travel quite a bit. I think on average, we put about, 360,000 miles on per year. Sometimes some of our routes are driving, 250 miles a day, things like that. So it's a pretty good operation we have going on here. We're not as big as some of the other districts in California, but we definitely have our own challenges.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's been one doozy of a year, right? Like we obviously started off back March last year, kind of punched us in the face. It was like, oh my God, COVID. And then everything kind of changed over time. And we've closed, we've gone to virtual, we've opened, hybrid. It's like,
yes.
Which way is up? I call it transportation twister. I mean, it's like you spin the wheel, what hand, what foot, and it's constantly changing. So, I mean, give us a little bit kind of what was the transportation twister you guys went through at Del Norte?
Well, I can't tell you how many projects I threw away before school started. I mean, it was just, come up with a great plan, and then we're going to go in a completely different direction and rewrite everything you've done. So, when school first closed down, we were doing meal deliveries, and that was a challenge, but not as much as starting school. So when we started school, we started in, I think, 4 different phases. The first phase, we were just doing meals, and then we started transporting special needs students every day. And then we added in K through 8 on cohorts, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. And then at some point we added high school, and some of the high school were doing Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. Some were doing week on, week off. So you can imagine the challenges in that, making that happen and making that look good on paper. And I was fortunate enough that App Garden created sandboxes to where I could kind of create these different scenarios and work with them and try to see how they were going to work out with bell schedules and things like that, and actually make it happen in reality. So it was a great tool. I'll tell you that.
Actually, can you explain a little bit what App Garden is for our listeners that aren't familiar?
So App Garden is a routing program, and it's a pretty robust routing program, but it's fairly easy to use. I've had demonstrations for other routing programs that are robust, but they are, it takes a lot of training to be able to, understand how it works and stuff like that. So I would say App Garden is almost akin to your phone. It has that kind of intuitive interface. And so it was really easy to teach my staff how to use and easy for me to use. It integrates with our student information system, pulls in, student information like phone numbers, addresses, in this case, cohorts, which cohort they were in. We were able to integrate that part of it. We actually have tablets now that the routes push over the tablets, and the GPS from the tablet shows where the bus is at all times. Yeah, it's a great system.
So do you have tablets on your entire fleet right now, or do you have them on select buses? How long have you had them? Give us a little background on kind of the technology stack of all the goodies you have on your school buses. Give us a little flavor there.
Okay. So pre-technology, I guess, I was writing all of our routes on Google Sheet, and I got a little bit elaborate with it and made it work, and it was going fairly well. But what I was really looking for is student tracking, to be able to know that students are getting on and off at the right stop. I had an incident once where we had to call search and rescue to try to find out where a kid was in the middle of one of our most rural areas, and so that prompted me to want to find some kind of tablet system to be able to track students and make sure they're getting on and off safely. So I started the journey, and this was, I would say, probably 4 years ago. Went through, I think, 4 different companies that told me that they could do this and make it happen. And it turns out they were really more in the development stage and couldn't really make it happen. And it was pretty painstaking. But after, I think it was probably 2 years ago, I had been using App Garden's field trip program. They told me about the routing program, and I told them really what my intent is to find somebody that could do student tracking well. And I did a demonstration with them, really liked the routing program. And like I said, I'd been dealing with App Garden for a while, and so I knew that they were able to do what they told me they were going to do, which was huge. And so I gave them a shot, and here we are, and it's working, and drivers love it, substitutes especially, because they're able to see who's supposed to be on the bus and where the students are supposed to get off. The whole cohort thing, is a kid supposed to be riding today? Are they confused on which day of the week it is? We don't want to take a kid to school and have them exposed to the wrong cohort, and that creates a whole different set of issues in the COVID world, which we are living. So yeah, no, it's been an amazing asset. But yeah, really the biggest piece of that was to do the student tracking. Now that I've had it, and I'm able to send notifications out to parents with bus schedules, and really see what a good routing program will do and how it can save me time and money. I am sad that I didn't see the value in it a lot sooner.
Great. And then have you used any ARP money, federal funds to kind of access some technology during COVID that maybe you didn't have before, that was on like your wish list, or you still waiting to be reimbursed for that? Like what's that process? Are you engaging your administrator, superintendent? Like, I know you're a rural district, and I know a lot of people say, oh, I'm too small, or I'm just this. And I never like to minimize, right? Because probably 60 to 65% of all STN's readers are rural school districts with like less than 50 buses. Yeah. So that is the makeup. That is the fabric of school transportation, right? Like, it's not the big metro cities. It's a lot of the rural footprint in cities. So have you taken advantage of any federal programs?
So it seems like the federal programs are a little bit tighter in California, and I'm not sure exactly why. They don't necessarily go for transportation alone. We were able to get some digital thermometers, the infrared thermometers, I guess, and get those mounted on the bus. But really, as far as technology, that's as much as we were able to do, because we had already taken a lot of steps. We have good camera systems, we have good routing program, things like that. So I don't think there was as much need for us to search that out.
What about like cleaning and sanitizing and stuff like that? Did you dive into any of that stuff? Any changes in your safety protocols, policies, kind of to outline that a little bit?
Yeah, so, obviously the buses get sanitized every day in between routes and after routes. We have hand sanitizer pumps as the students get on. Because of Title 13 in California, we can't have any flammable liquids that aren't personal use. So it has to be non-alcohol based. We worked with CHP for a while on that one. And of course, masks. We have student assessment sheets that have to be turned in every day. So there was a lot of training with the drivers initially when we started getting kids back on the bus. The seat behind the driver and the two adjacent seats are left empty. Our buses are running at about half capacity, I guess. But because we're doing cohorts and because some parents are more fearful of letting their kids in a closed group like that, we've been able to make it work without any more assets as far as buses or drivers.
Got it. And then, so based on kind of what's being told out there on a governmental level, are you seeing or anticipating being open almost like pre-pandemic levels for the next school year? So 21-22, that's going to be like business as usual, back to normal. Is that what you're seeing?
That is the plan. And I'll reiterate, last year I threw away a lot of plans, but that is the plan. That's moving forward. I'm not gonna make any other plans. I'm just gonna, do it like I normally would. So, and hope that is the way things happen.
Excellent. Well, hey, we're really excited to have you on the podcast, and thanks so much for being here and sharing with us. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Next up, Taylor Hannon and Monica Ragoza, Director of Transportation at Corona-Norco Unified School District in California, are talking with us.
All right. Hello. I am joined here with Monica Ragoza. She's the Director of Transportation Services at Corona-Norco Unified School District here in California. So, hey, Monica, it's great to have you on.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so I actually talked to Monica a couple weeks ago for an article on mental health. And you guys can find that at stnonline.com/special reports. But I was blown away by her passion on this topic. And I had to bring her on here so that she could talk to you guys all about it for herself. So with that, I kind of want to start, where did your passion for wellness originate from? And why is it so important to incorporate wellness into the workplace?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm gonna admit to something real quick, because even though I'm very passionate and aware of the importance of wellness, I have to admit that I myself am guilty of not always applying what I preach in this topic, right? And it's easy for me to get comfortable in my own busy day life and routine. And as leaders, we want to do everything for everyone else, and we want to lead and help everyone, but then we forget about ourselves. So I'm just as guilty about that, and it's really work in progress, and it's really about awareness. And I did talk to you earlier about this, but this past year, having lost family members and friends to the virus, and personally I experienced in my own home having a child who had some emotional and social behaviors because of having to stay home from school. So going through those experiences for myself, for my family, and for those that I work with, wellness became extremely important and definitely a priority in my life.
And then, bringing your employees back after virtual learning, after this pandemic, why was it so important for you to bring that experience that you had into the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's face it, the pandemic affected everyone in some way or another, right? And I'm sure that we all have a story. And moving forward, I think that it's important that we take the time to acknowledge and address what we experience for the social and emotional well-being aspects, but also keep in mind that there was other things that happened in the world during this time. I mean, there's a lot of things in the world that happened, and it affected us in many different ways, and it definitely affected our well-being. So some people are just affected in simple things like, well, the gyms were closed, and we were so affected by not being able to go to certain places, and it took a toll on our bodies. And others experienced financial hardships and things like that on a greater scale. And those things cause stress. It changes our daily routines, our sleep patterns, and just our day-to-day stuff. Activities were altered in such a dramatic way in such a short time that all of those things play a part in the way that we behave in our daily life and the way that we interact with people. So in transportation alone, I mean, when I think about in my work and I think about my drivers, I think about those aspects and how those components affect their capacity in driving and operating a vehicle, and the increase in accidents and injuries, and really their ability to help our students when they really need it.
Mm-hmm. And I know one of the biggest things that stood out from our conversation earlier was that it's not just physical wellness. And I think we got so caught up on that during the pandemic, right? Like I could go on Jeopardy and I could tell you how to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, but there wasn't a lot of conversation on what is wellness and what are the different aspects of it. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right. We hear wellness and automatically we just think physical and sometimes mental wellness. But wellness is really multidimensional. And as I mentioned, those components also affect, like I was talking about the financial and pieces, all of those components affect our overall wellness when we're stressing over other things. It was actually at a leadership meeting that we had here in our district with our child nutrition director, Megan Cook. And she presented to us all the different aspects. And that really brought awareness to me personally, because there was other things like that she talked about, like the financial, the occupational, the social, intellectual, spiritual, environmental, aside from the physical and mental. And all of those affect our daily performance and our outcomes. I'll touch a little bit on the spiritual because it was very personal for me during this time. But as I mentioned, losing family members and friends during the pandemic, it really made me question my own beliefs and purpose for a while. And I had to consciously find peace and balance. And I really had to practice mindfulness during this time. And as a leader in my capacity, and I would say this to any leader, it is crucial that we take care of ourselves, because with these big roles that we have, it is important that we are at our best in order to provide that layer of support to the people that we serve.
Yeah, and I know you explained it as like the oxygen mask theory, right? When you're on an airplane,
Right.
You have to put your mask on
absolutely.
first before you put on
in order
others.
to help others.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know that you've been pushing it a lot through your staff. What are some resources and phone applications that you guys use in your transportation department that you can kind of share with some of our listeners?
Absolutely. Well, I really strongly believe that we have to take advantage of the technology and the access that we have nowadays, right? I mean, everyone has a phone. Everybody has all this technology. So that's a resource. So why not use it? That's a free resource for most of us in a lot of cases. So I personally use a few apps on my phone, like Fitness Pal, which tracks my daily steps and activity. I use another one called Fastic, and it tracks my eating and water intake habits because I'm horrible at it. But it also provides me with, if you want to fast, and times and reminders. It gives me healthy recipes, and it also provides a community platform for encouragement. So all of those things help you maintain a healthy, ongoing lifestyle. I also earlier talked about financial wellness. Well, there's an app that I use that's called Every Dollar, and this is a budget planner and expense tracker tool. So that's available. We also push that out to all of our staff. And I didn't talk too much about the intellectual wellness, but professional and personal development can really stimulate the brain. So we encourage listening to like TED Talks and watching educational YouTube videos. And of course, now the new thing is podcasts like these, right? So it's always fun to really go into it and do and enjoy something and listen to something that stimulates your brain and something that you enjoy listening to and love doing. So those are the kind of apps that we definitely push out, and there are resources again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so easy. They're on our phones. We can track, right? Okay. And then I know what kind of stirred this whole conversation is that it's Mental Health Awareness Month, which is, talked about in the article as well. So definitely check it out if you haven't. But what are you guys doing at your district to raise awareness, for this Mental Health Month?
So each week we tackle a stressor, and we do it by educating and providing resources to our staff and drivers. But we also have staff and drivers that participate in a Spirit Week and we provide coping skills outlined each day. So for instance, Mondays are Mindful Mondays, and we want our staff to focus on mindfulness and be aware of what's happening and just be in that moment. So the coping skill for that day would be to participate in a guided meditation, things like that. So we provide the resources and give them ideas on how to do that. My personal favorite is Treat Yourself Tuesdays. So, it would be focus on something that you like to do or that you love to do and just treat yourself to that. And I usually do a treat because that's what I like to treat myself to. So, but every day is a different day. And on Fridays, we wear green. So we all participate in wearing green and just to bring that awareness. And it's a visual and a reminder to all.
Mm-hmm. And going forward, I know you guys are kind of back in person on a little bit of a hybrid schedule, but how do you aim to continue the conversation about wellness and mental health outside of, this month?
Well, we definitely want to keep the momentum going. So wellness is not just a once a year or once a month thing, right? It's about ongoing lifestyle changes and making good choices. So we want to have the resources and tools yearly and push that out. So we have to be creative, to be honest with you. We're going to have to be creative in keeping that momentum going. And we just started out by forming a wellness committee. So we're going to, get together, collaborate on how to educate, promote, and help us spread the word.
I love that. I'm telling you, you're just so inspiring. Like I sit here and I'm like,
thank you.
How can I incorporate wellness into my day? I'm lacking a lot of areas.
Well, it's that awareness. Again, we all fall into that. And I think for me, the same thing. You consciously have to remind myself. I consciously have to stop and say, hey, am I doing these things? And remind ourselves. So.
Well, anyways, while I have you, I'm going to switch gears really quickly. Tony and I talked a little bit earlier kind of about summer school and districts kind of ramping up for that. Are you guys offering, a summer school option this year?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Our district is prepared and excited to announce a very comprehensive summer school program that we call our Summer Boost, and it's for grades K through 12. And the students in the K through 8th program will be able to participate in 2 10-day sessions, and then our high school students will be able to participate in 2 17-day sessions. So these programs are going to offer the Title I schools, English language students with an IEP, the dual immersion programs, and so it's going to be an exciting. And of course, our transportation department is going to be collaborating by getting students to these summer boost programs. When the program's not offered at their home school, we will transport them there. And then child nutrition is going to jump in by providing grab and go meals, and in some cases, even hot meals for the students as well. So yeah, we're absolutely excited to continue the learning process through the summertime.
Yeah, that's great. Is that starting in June then?
It is starting June 7th, yes.
Okay. And so have you guys heard about, getting any American Rescue Plan funds to kind of help offset those costs?
Well, I have heard about it. It's exciting because, again, when you think about evaluating, the pandemic and what we did good and what we were lacking of, we found that technology was something that was really lacking in probably all districts, right? And all over the place. We were just not prepared for that. So I think it's definitely the time that we take this opportunity to evaluate our technology needs. And if these funds will support the purchases of like Wi-Fi and hotspots on school buses, and then provide, off-campus broadband services to students, then we need to take advantages of these resources and access that we have now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tony and I were also talking, about the FCC kind of announcing that school buses will now be included for that federal reimbursement for this emergency connectivity fund that they just announced. So
yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's an opportunity that you guys should definitely look into.
Absolutely. And we will. Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Well, yeah, Monica, it's been great talking to you. I really can't wait to see you in person at the XTN Expo in Reno in December.
Yes. So I will be there. It's exciting.
I believe you're signing up for the TD Summit too in Lake Tahoe.
Absolutely. I'm excited that it's back in person and ready to collaborate with my colleagues and see what everyone did and how they did through this pandemic. So
yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a big topic of how people are kind of navigating. Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much again. It's been great talking to you. And it reminds me that I need to look at myself a little bit more and make that conscious wellness effort.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. We had a great podcast. Special thanks to Derek, Monica, for joining the podcast. My co-host, Miss Taylor Hannon. We loved having you on. I'm thinking maybe some more, Taylor. We need more Taylor on this podcast.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see what the people want,
Absolutely. And hey, special shout out to the episode sponsors, TransFinder, Liquid Spring, and our friends at App Garden. Thanks so much for listening. Stream, subscribe, review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stnpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Don't forget, as I said before, stnonline.com is your source for all the latest news, trends, analysis, stimulus funding, COVID-19, school startup, hurricanes. We got it all over here at STN. Make sure and check out the website. Taylor, Ryan, our awesome team of editorial staff is churning out the best of articles. So enjoy those. And don't forget, STN Expo, Transporting Students with Disabilities Conference. They are coming up this fall. Go to stnexpo.com for all the details. And guess what? Registration is opening really soon. So go to those websites, sign up today. I know you're just climbing the walls to get out of the office and go see your peers and share the great stories that you've faced. How to be better, operationally efficient. And also, if you're a transportation director, we got the Transportation Director Summit as well, happening in Lake Tahoe. It's a great place, right? Picturesque Lake Tahoe. And we've got also in Indianapolis, we're doing it at Topgolf. So really invite you guys to apply, be one of our lucky applicants at the Transportation Director Summit. We're excited to see you there. Can't wait to see you next week on the podcast. We love you, School Transportation Nation. We'll see you next time.